Fort Madison Indian Reservation of the sovereign Suquamish tribal government, home of the great Chief Seattle. And but before we get started, we wanted to start off in a good way, and we have a prayer from Counselor Gary Bitso from the Menominee Indian tribe. So, Counselor, could you take it away?
Uso na tayo ay makna. Os pavas na aswisian. Nantoto manua ayaw awasa. Matmane kikitan nani na tao. Nantoto manua ayaw awasa. Got the man kikitim. Good afternoon. My name is Gary Bisa, and I am a member of the Menominee Tribal Legislature, and I am a member of the Bear Clan. And in those responsibilities that I had just talked about in our beautiful language, I'm here today. I've been asked to step forward with my son, Otachia, and honor our tribe with the invocation for today's event. The Menominee people have another name for ourselves that speaks a lot about us. We are Caucus Mamachitawak. We are the ancient ones. We do not have a migration story. We have always been here in what is now called the state of Wisconsin. In fact, the name for Wisconsin comes from our beautiful language, Wisconsin, meaning a good place to live. I've been asked to translate some of what Otachia will be asking for, what we have asked him to speak to that great mystery and to those spirits, those helper spirits, those grandfathers. So you can pray in your own way. We'll be asking and thanking that great mystery for all of the medicines and all of the great blessings that they've given us to have this beautiful world. He will also be speaking to the grandfathers, to those spirits, and asking for help for our elders, for our veterans, for those who are ill and suffering in this terrible pandemic, and for the leaders, to give those leaders strength to stand up and be those true servants that we are asking for and needing in this time. And he is also going to be asking, as people leave from wherever you are viewing this, he is also going to be asking those spirits to help give you safe travel home. So when you get home, you find your family and your friends in a good way. You find them well and healthy as you left them. So I'll say about that much, and I ask Otachia now, please give us the invocation.
Aha, Otachia na akayan, Nature Matna Manewa, Kais Kochiman to Pos Noach Kakiki na Yope, at Skona, Ayom, Mo Jason swap it there. Swanamana Kispin Kiwachi Nasian, Mac Chini Kakenan, that Satan they want to Matna weakness and Hauka Mass Not and Shik Mo come not more cook, and I know when I cook in and it's a pack. Kochiman and Amual Pus Patch not the Moya Ethiope or Patten and Isanak Saya. I catch a pan now and I wait suckers in for Mount Palmer Simaka. Mauni Nich Pamata Sewa, Q wait sucker Siwak. We are Q Nepok. Bemahin Mashik Mason. Met say, we stew Miskozo and Mashik Tapamata Sewa and Nitataka Sewa and Spos Payana Mokini wait suckers in. Mashik Passin and Mawa Kiki to and any walk, Mashik Kiki to Wiaki walk. A man ton a wow and was patching up when he kept to it waki niwani so se kimaka monica manata me was patching up on a muck was not the more chin mawa kinichian and our mishikta mawa kitchkiwak aya se makanesa passing out mawa kimane tonin in one so patching up when he kaya mauni kako Shikta wan to kusum kumenike a maoni kako he yomakihi haya pitch kenan haya manatoak he yom keso kis mokaha na kut mshik kesika netawa wan to kusia na hauka shik pamahe maoni wia kesia kewaya he yope kona poch wia kis wa no wa piwa not the moons was patch ke wa to Shikta maoni kako and it's this machia the bani as machia kitam kama Shikta he yom se ho chikun kitam maoni he se to we maoni kako not the moya so cut usichia so cut machi enani toma maoni kako maoni enani toma in on niche pamata the siu hormonanimen maoni Maoni wea ke hios tano e makini no wakin it's a sawia not the moya so cut one haka ne ke yapiche yope tano e makina ne.
Thank you for that that beautiful prayer. We'd like to also move now on to a welcome from Chairwoman Joanne Delarue for the Menominee Indian tribe. So, Chairwoman, would you take it away, please?
Poso, my name is Joan Delabrew. I am the current chairwoman for the Menominee Tribal Legislature, which is the duly elected governing body of the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin. It is my honor to welcome the Democratic National Convention and everyone to the ancestral lands of the Menominee, known today as Milwaukee and Wisconsin. For the 9,100 Menominee, we have no migration story. This has always been our home. Our ancestral lands once encompassed parts of 5 states: Minnesota, Michigan, Illinois, Iowa, and of course Wisconsin. However, through a series of treaties, the tribe witnessed its land base erode to a little more than 235,000 acres today. The governmental seat for the Menominee tribe is Kashina, which is located approximately 45 miles northwest of Green Bay, Wisconsin. Our reservation is approximately 95% forest and managed under sustained yield principles. Our forest is world-renowned for striking a balance between the removal of trees and the growth of the various species, but only taking the sick, the dead, and the dying. During the last 140 years, 2.5 billion board feet of lumber has been cut, equaling to clear-cutting our reservation almost 3 times. To the untrained eye, it appears to be a pristine forest. Today, we have more board feet within our forest than there was over 120 years ago. On behalf of my tribe, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the Democrat National Convention organizers for choosing our ancestral lands to host the convention. Also, I want to express my gratitude and appreciation to the Democratic National Convention's land acknowledgement of the tribal nations. Your land acknowledgements are a way to honor our tribal histories and recognizing the unique and lasting relationship that tribes have with their lands. In closing, stay safe and enjoy your visit to the place that has deep imprints of our Menominee culture, history, traditions, and language. Wewanen.
Miigwech to the entire Menominee Indian tribe for that beautiful prayer and wonderful welcome. Next, I have the incredible honor of introducing Dr. Jill Biden. One of the things that I take a lot of pride in is having a very strong teacher for a wife too. So that's definitely something I share in common with Vice President Biden. My wife is to the rock bed of our family. And, I think throughout this convention, one thing that we've learned about the Biden family is that Dr. Biden holds that family together, lifts it up, and is really the strength behind everybody in there, much like we have very, very strong Native women leaders, as we demonstrated in our last caucus meeting with some of the first. And I'm really excited to have Dr. Biden come and talk to us today about Indian country and Vice President Biden's commitment to Indian country. She's been an incredible friend to our community and somebody that we're very, very lucky to have again visiting our caucus. So, Dr. Biden, thank you for joining us, and would you please take it away? Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for your beautiful comments. Your support and friendship are everything to us. So good afternoon. This isn't the convention we imagined. And yet, like so many things this year, we are finding joy in the unexpected. Even if we can't be together, feel the excitement everywhere. I feel the passion and dedication from all of you. And I know we're ready to do the hard work of getting Joe Biden and Kamala Harris elected. We see the stakes of this election every day, especially for the Native American communities that are feeling the pain of COVID more than others. From healthcare to voting rights to tribal sovereignty, your rights are on the line. You deserve a partner who will stand by you, not stand in your way. And that's Joe. Throughout this campaign, he has been clear. We stand with Indian country, but we are all going to have to work as hard as we can from now till November to make sure that Joe and Kamala win this. It's not going to be easy, but when the days feel long, I want you to think about what we're working toward. So picture it. It's 2021. It's a beautiful morning and you're sipping your coffee. You pick up the morning paper and the headline isn't about some late night tweet storm. Instead, it's a story about the children who will benefit from universal pre-kindergarten and dramatic increases in school funding. You turn on the local news and the anchors aren't talking about a pandemic raging out of control with no end in sight. Instead, they're talking about how tribes are receiving funds to make sure that there is running water that is clean, roads that are safe, schools that are healthy places to learn, and everyone has the broadband they need. When you go outside, your neighbor tells you about her new job because Joe Biden has invested in Indian country small businesses and made sure that you are a part of the new energy economy. And when your close friend needs health care, she no longer has to worry because Indian Health Services has the funding it needs and because she has more options for affordable health coverage. When you go to bed that night, you don't worry about a crashing economy or if your tribal nation has a seat at the table, because you know that this administration honors treaties and honors the nation-to-nation relationship, and that a team of talented, thoughtful, honest public servants are in the White House. A president and a Madam Vice President that you can feel proud of. And as I said yesterday, Americans have the grit to get through this pandemic. We're putting our shoulders back, fighting for each other. We haven't given up. We just need leadership worthy of our nation, worthy of you. Honest leadership to bring us back together, to recover from this pandemic and prepare for whatever else is next. Leadership to reimagine what our nation will be. That's Joe and Kamala. So keep up the great work. Keep organizing and volunteering and speaking up, because all of these individual actions we take today add up to something powerful this November. And together, we will make the future ours. So I want to end by saying thank you. Thank you for all you've done and you'll do in this election. Thank you for fighting for our future. And thank you for your faith in an idea that's bigger than any one of us. And that is that we will build a better nation because we're going to do this together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Biden. It's always wonderful to hear from you and hear about Vice President Biden and Senator Harris's commitment to Indian country. You've been a true friend, and thank you for standing with us and telling the story, like we like to say, in terms of telling the story and telling your commitment to, and Vice President Biden's commitment to that nation-to-nation relationship. Thank you.
You have our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have one of my great friends. And one of the things that Dr. Biden was talking about is really having that seat at the table in terms of Indian country. One of the things that we were able to do under the leadership of Chairman Perez was move from a council to a caucus. We have seen such a dramatic shift in terms of the overall commitment in the Democratic Party to Indian country and to having our voices heard. And, it's just an honor to have had the opportunity to work with, see the commitment, see the fire and tenacity of Chairman Perez firsthand. I consider him a friend, really appreciate him joining us here today, and look forward to hearing his good words and hearing about, all the good that he has to say and do in Indian country. Chairman Perez, can you take it away, please?
Thanks so much, Ryan. It's a great pleasure to be with you and with everybody on this in this meeting. And it's hard to follow Dr. Biden. You saw that video of Dr. Biden the other night. You got to hear her speak so passionately and eloquently. And I had the privilege of getting to know her during the course of my tenure in the Team Obama Biden. And I traveled with her once to North Carolina, and we were going to a community college. And I didn't talk to her for long because she was grading papers. You may have heard that reference the other night. That was the same thing I experienced. And when we got to the community college, and half the crowd were community college teachers or administrators, they didn't realize she had a second full-time job. And you should have watched their jaws drop when they learned that she's got 3 classes she's teaching as a full-time professor. And that's just who they are. Common decency is what is a hallmark of the Bidens. And family and faith is another hallmark. And family and faith is the hallmark of our Native American communities as well. And that's why I think there's such a connection between the Bidens and Indian country. And I am so proud of being able to work at the DNC with Team Biden. Our union has been flawless. The merger's been flawless. We've been working so hard moving forward, and we're organizing everywhere, and we are working to earn every single vote. Ryan has been indispensable in our efforts to make sure that we are organizing and building those relationships in Indian country. Ryan and Keith Harper and Paulette Jordan, I'll call her Senator Jordan, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Thank you to all of you for the great work you've done. When we were doing our platform work, another person I asked to participate on one of the most important committees we have, our drafting committee. They're the ones who really come together and put the draft on the table. And the person I asked to participate on my behalf was Deb Holland. Deb did us proud. I was proud to campaign for her in 2018. Really appreciate her serving. And you know what I'm really excited about, and you all probably know this, but Deb will be speaking tonight at the last night of the convention. I couldn't be prouder. I was just texting with her a little while ago. She is a superstar. I'll be doing a fundraising event next week with Charisse. That is another superstar. And the two of them are a dynamic duo in the U.S. House, and we're going to continue to work hard to make history. Folks, we got 74 days till the weekend, 74 days till the most important election of our lifetime. And this convention has really been unconventional, but this convention, I think, has been really inspirational. And when I reflect back on this convention, I have to say one of the highlights was the call of the roll going across the country. And I can't tell you the number of people who said to me in the aftermath, Tom, I loved going around the country. And in particular, I loved the states where Native American leaders and spokespeople were giving us a sense of the values of their communities. It was a really, really powerful moment to demonstrate our unity as the United States. And that's what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are all about, uniting the country. This isn't simply a convention for Democrats. This is a convention for everyone. I'm tired of having a divider in chief. I'm tired of having a tweeter in chief. We need a consoler in chief, a uniter in chief, a commander in chief, a leader in chief. We have these three crises, and the coronavirus we know has disproportionately touched Native American, African American, and Latino communities. And I remember talking early on with President Nez, who again was a remarkable speaker at this convention, and to see what was happening in the Navajo Nation, and to see that they had to file suit against the federal government to get the money released from the stimulus bill. The thing about Trump is there's just a chronic disrespect for communities of color, Native Americans, Latinos, African Americans, Asian Americans, a fundamental disrespect. And Joe Biden understands that we should be treating everyone with dignity. Everyone will have a seat at the table in the Biden-Harris administration. That you can count on. And that is why we must continue our work. I'm proud of the fact that we have organizers in Indian country, in Arizona, in Montana, in other places where we have tremendous opportunity to win, not only for Biden and Harris, but win those Senate seats in Montana, Arizona, Colorado, and elsewhere. And your partnership, your help is indispensable to that success. So let's keep that work together. Again, I would ask you one thing, and it's an important thing. I want you to please every day wake up in the morning and ask yourself the following question. What did I do today, or what am I going to do today to help Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and other Democrats to get elected in my state? And then at the end of the day, ask yourself, and this is the accountability stage, did I do it? Did I help? And by the way, if you're wondering, I don't know what to do, I want to help, but I don't exactly know where to go, we have one of the most dynamic leaders at the DNC, and that is Teresa Sheldon. So you should call Teresa if you aren't sure what to do. Because as we say in coaching circles, and I've coached basketball for 15 years, and when you got a player who can play, and one of our speakers tonight is Steph Curry. When you watch Steph Curry, you say, he's got game. Teresa's got game. So if you have any questions, Teresa's there to help. We are all hands on deck, folks, and I look forward to winning in November and restoring the dignity of this country and making sure everyone has a seat at the table. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks to everybody on this call. Let's get to work. Let's keep it work, and let's have a great night tonight.
Amen. 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 Thank you, Chairman Perez. As always, you do not disappoint with your words and your fire and passion and commitment to Indian country. So thank you for those powerful words. Up next, we have an incredible voice of passion and to use Chairman Perez's words, another man that has incredible game. He is in leadership in the House and somebody that we can count on in Indian country. I'm truly honored that he's making the time to come today and spread some of his impassioned words in that regard and show us, some of the fire and commitment to Indian country. So thank you for joining us, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Thank you for making the time. And, I look forward to sitting back and enjoying a fiery speech. So take it away, sir.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Chairman Ramirez, for your friendship and for your leadership and for giving me an opportunity to fellowship with the Native American Caucus virtually. But it's a wonderful opportunity to share this moment together. To Vice Chair Jordan, to some of my good friends, Rodney Butler, Keith Harper, and of course to Sharice Davids and Deb Holland, two extraordinary members of the United States House of Representatives who have already done so much for so many in such a short period of time. It's an honor and a blessing to join with all of you today and to serve as the chair of the House Democratic Caucus. Proud to say the most diverse legislative caucus in the history of the Republic. And as a result of the diversity of the House Democratic Caucus, we now have more women serving in Congress than ever before, more African Americans, more Latinos, more Asian Americans, more members of the LGBTQ community, and 2 Native American women serving in the House of Representatives for the first time in our nation's history. Because we recognize as Democrats that our diversity is a strength, it is not a weakness. And the House of Representatives was designed to be the institution closest to the people, to reflect the hopes, the dreams, the aspirations, the fears, the concerns, the anxieties, and the passions of the people. And it's because of the opportunity to have such a diverse group of folks serving in the House Democratic Caucus that we can authentically channel the best interests of everyone, including Indian country. And we look forward to growing the ranks of Native American members of the House and the Senate in the foreseeable future. I'm so thankful for all the work that you have been doing, because the stakes couldn't be any higher as it relates to what we're all about and what they're all about. We are trying to bring the country together. They want to tear us apart. We want to move the country forward. They're trying to turn back the clock. We fight for the people. They fight for the privileged few. We believe in the public interest. Donald Trump is all about his own personal interests. We fight for working families, middle-class folks, those who aspire to be part of the middle class, young people, senior citizens, the poor, the sick, the afflicted, veterans, the least, the lost, the left behind, and Indian country. They fight for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. We believe that every single person in this country should have access to high quality, affordable health care. They're in court right now trying to take it away. We want to make sure that Native Americans throughout the land have the opportunity to pursue the best of what America has to offer. They choose to ignore Indian country, but here's a news flash straight out of Brooklyn. Democrats will fight for Indian country today. Democrats will fight for Indian country tomorrow, and Democrats will fight for Indian country forever, because that is in our DNA. It's in the DNA of Joe Biden. It's in the DNA of Kamala Harris. It's in the DNA of the House Democratic Caucus, particularly with members like Sharice David and Deb Holland, my good friends, leading the charge. And so we're at a crossroads here in America as it relates to what kind of future we're going to have. That's why we're fighting to make sure that the coronavirus relief packages include Indian country in a meaningful way, because we know that the pain, the suffering, and the death that has occurred as a result of COVID-19 has been disproportionately borne by Indian country and communities of color, and that is not right. And we've got to reverse that. We need to reauthorize the Violence Against Women's Act, the broader one that will give everyone the tools, particularly to deal with increased violence against Native American girls and women. And we need to respect Indian country and sacred land and deal with the legacies of the Native American genocide and systemic racism that are in the soil of America and have been there for hundreds of years. And that's what we plan to tackle when we get what I call triangular alignment between the House and the Senate and the presidency. So let's go out there with your support. Let's win the day. Let's win the week. Let's win the month. Let's win the election. Let's hold the House. Let's flip the Senate. Let's make sure that Joe Biden is the 46th president of the United States of America. And together, we will all continue our long, necessary, and majestic march toward a more perfect union. God bless you. God bless the Democratic Party. God bless Indian country. And God bless the United States of America.
Amen, sir. Amen. Thank you. Miigwech, I raise my hands up to you. Thank you for your beautiful words and passion and commitment to all of us in Indian country. Thank you for joining us. Next up, we have the wonderful senator from the state of Nevada. While I did not live, or I lived a little bit of time in Nevada, my dad lived in Nevada before his passing a little over a year ago, and I got to spend a bunch of time in Nevada. Got to really enjoy the community out there, whether it's the Las Vegas Paiute, whether it's the Reno Indian Sparks colony. Spent a lot of time there as a youth, and I'm really proud to see the work that the senator has had in terms of working out there. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto has done a masterful job of working hard for us in Indian country and showing a true commitment in regards to whether it's economic development, whether it's whatever you have, we can always count on her to stand up and fight with us. So, Senator, I want to thank you for joining us here today. Thank you for making time. There's always reasons to say no. I appreciate you for always finding a reason to say yes and come speak to us in Indian country today. So if you would take it away and tell us your story in terms of your commitment and work in Indian country. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I am so excited to be here, and thank you for the invitation to address the Native American Caucus. And I will always take the opportunity to do that, as you well know. And you highlighted some of the incredible tribal communities in our state. In Nevada, there's 27. And I've had the opportunity to get to know these incredible families, members over the years, and work with them. Not only as the Attorney General, but now. And that was one of the reasons when I came to the United States Senate, why I wanted to sit on Senate Indian Affairs, because of my work here in Nevada with our tribes, seeing that more needs to be done to address the concerns that I just saw in the state of Nevada. It's one thing, we always hear the words, yes, we're going to do this yes, we recognize this, yes, but it's about actions. We all think and know that words, yeah, that's great. But what matters to all of us, including in Indian country, are actions. What are you doing about it? Because for too long, there's been just words and no action. So my commitment was I'm going to get on Senate Indian Affairs and continue to fight for our tribal communities across this country. And the work is important because not only have I seen just in the past the challenges that tribal communities have in Indian country, has across the country, there's a lot of work still to be done. And I will tell you, I know after working with our communities in Nevada and now getting the opportunity nationally to work and meet with so many incredible tribal members, that there's a lot of opportunity, but there's still work that we need to do to really lift up our communities, our tribal communities across this country. And there is no doubt that our tribal communities are the foundation of our democracy. And what we need to do at the federal government is not only recognize that, but continue to support and live up to our responsibility at the federal level to our tribal communities across the country. That includes adequately funding, quite frankly, which I have seen is not happening now, as I see an oversight of the Senate Indian Affairs, is our Bureau of Indian Health, our education system in our tribal communities. There are so many challenges right now, let alone everything else that we are dealing with the lands and tribal lands and the protecting the culturally sensitive sites for our tribal communities. Add that to the pandemic that we are all going through and the challenges dealing with access to healthcare getting the PPE, protecting the members of your community, and fighting for those federal dollars. That's why tribal consultation is so important. That is something that I always include and demand in my legislation and or ask every time I have a federal agency that over me that works with Indian countries. Have you include tribal consultation? And what does that look like? And have you done it yet? Because quite frankly, when we passed the CARES Act and we fought for the funding that went to tribal communities, we fought for state and local governments and our tribal communities, that money did not get directly to our tribal communities. And rightfully so, we were questioning what was going on. That's outrageous to me that we fight for these dollars, we fight for the set aside, we fight to recognize that our tribes should be treated differently and have access to those funds, and they don't get it. So it is important for us in the Senate, both in the Senate and in the House, to have those oversight hearings and hold the administration accountable. With that said, it helps to have friends in the administration. And now I know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are our friends. They are going to be there. They are going to make sure the people that are in positions in the executive branch of government that have oversight over our tribal communities are actually going to be in consultation with Indian country and working to improve and bring more resources and to address the needs of our tribal communities. I don't have to tell all of you, so many are challenged right now with economic development. I see that in my tribes. I see it across the country. That's why some of my legislation is just focusing on our tribal communities and how we can expand and invest in economic opportunities throughout Indian country. Food insecurity, we see that happening even prior to this pandemic. It has been highlighted in even more because of the COVID pandemic. That's why we have to focus on more funding, not only to our tribes for food insecurity, but really address the types of food that our tribal communities want and need for their health. We also have to reauthorize the special diabetes program for Indians. I've seen the benefits of that. That is a great model that should be replicated in other areas that we should be funding and supporting for our tribal communities. And then there are so many others, but I do want to focus on something that is the topic of, I know, the discussion today, which is our missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. This is something that really is a focus for me and has been even before I got to the Senate. I worked on sex trafficking issues in the state of Nevada. At that time, I made sure our tribal communities were part of the discussion. And I carry that with me when I went to the Senate. And now that as I sit on Senate Indian Affairs, too many of our Indigenous women and girls murdered or missing. We don't have the data. We don't understand what's going on. And we are not putting the resources and the enforcement into addressing this issue. It could be a number of issues, from domestic violence to sex trafficking to you name it, but we don't know because we don't have the data. That's why I was so pleased to partner with Heidi Heitkamp, Senator Heitkamp, who spearheaded Savannah's Act and sponsored it with Lisa Murkowski. And I was able to join them in a bipartisan way on Savannah's Act, as well as the Not Invisible Act, to address the issue of Indigenous missing and murdered women and children. And so it has passed the Senate, both of those bills. Now it is on the House. We're working with our colleagues on the House side to get those moving as well, and then on to the president's desk for signature. To me, that's really the focus that should be in Congress, working with our administration in a bipartisan way for our tribal communities who are challenged on so many ways. And there's so many opportunities right now to have that success. So I am committed to working with all of you. I want to hear from you. Thank you for so many of you who have already been working with me and my staff on how we can bring additional resources and work on behalf of Indian country across the United States. I will say this, there is also a challenge that we have seen in voting. I saw it in Nevada in our Indian country a couple of election cycles ago, where they were trying to undermine and limit the ability for some of our members of our Native American communities to vote. Now in Nevada, and this is true across the country, I know many of our tribal communities are challenged geographically to get to. Sometimes you have to drive 4 hours in the middle of a desert just to get to one of our tribal communities. So access to urban areas where there are voting machines is very difficult. So we need to bring the machines to them. We literally had to go to court a couple of election cycles ago so that we can ensure that voting machines were brought to our Native American community so they had the right and ability to vote and that their votes counted. I think there's a lot of voter suppression like that happening across the country. That's why, as chair of the DSCC, I have been taking on this litigation and will continue to open up access to rights for all of our members in Indian country to be able to vote and make sure their votes count. But at the end of the day, again, it goes back to we need leaders who are looking out for those rights, those fundamental rights. And that is Joe Biden. That is Kamala Harris. Joe Biden is a friend. He is somebody that will and has already identified what he wants to do on behalf of Indian country. And I support him. I will be there in the Senate. We need to make sure he has a House to work with. I'm working to flip the Senate so he has a Senate to work with, but we have that, and we are going to be able to do so much more for Indian country. But we've got to make sure that Harris is elected. We've got to make sure that Joe Biden goes to the White House, and we've got to make sure we turn out this election cycle. So thank you all again for letting me speak to the caucus. Thank you for all of your good work, and I look forward to future collaboration.
Thank you, Madam Senator. I mean, one of the other things I wanted to do before you left was just thank you for the DSCC's support for Paulette Jordan in terms of my vice chair in Idaho. I think that's something that's incredibly important to note too, is your commitment there showing up and representing in terms of her and, our Native American woman running for Senate in the state of Idaho. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you. And so, yes, I wanted to do a shout out. If people don't know this, we've got an incredible diverse slate of candidates that are running in the Senate. And Paulette is one that is running who we have endorsed, and she's running in Idaho. And she is exciting. She is fantastic. She comes already with great experience working on behalf of Native communities. And think about that. Having a voice for she would be the first Native woman to be elected to the United States Senate. That's incredible to have that voice at the table informing legislation. And so that's why it is important. We really have to turn out our friends and turn out so many people that are going to fight for us. So thank you for doing that shout out. I think it's something important. People need to make sure they know who's running and who they can turn out to support.
Amen. Thank you. And in that vein, I'm going to pass it over to one of our first ever congresswomen in the history of the United States that is Native American, my good friend Deb Haaland. Representative Haaland, take it away.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Senator, very nice to see you as always. And I'm honored right now to have the opportunity to introduce our next speaker. She came to Congress to fight for vulnerable people, to give voice to those among us who our country wasn't listening to. She is fierce, fearless, and tireless, and she has always protected and defended tribal nations, women, and children. And all these years later, she is still doing the hard work to ensure an equitable society for all, defend our most treasured public spaces, and without her, millions of Americans would not now have health care. She is a woman who embraced the first two Native American congresswomen in our country's history. She is so kind and thoughtful, a person whom I love and am proud to call a friend. Honored guest, the first woman Speaker of the House in American history, Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Deb Haaland. An honor to be here with you and again with members of the Native American DNC Virtual Caucus. Thank you for your courage to run for office, your stamina and brilliance to win, and to bring to the Congress a much needed diversity of Native American women for the first time. But you didn't come alone. You came with Sharice Davids, and the two of you have just made such a tremendous difference. So I thank the community for the support that they've given to their sisters to become our sisters in the Congress. I think it's important for everyone to know that in your case, Deb, you came to the Congress and you became the chair immediately, in a matter of being there weeks. You became the chair of the Public Lands Subcommittee of the Natural Resources Committee, Indian Country. She chairs it. She presides. She holds the gavel. And that was just being in Congress a few weeks. She was strategic in her arrival. And Sharice Davids has been a remarkable, effective from the start member of Congress. So we couldn't be more thrilled, but more importantly, better enhanced by their service and their leadership in the Congress. So here we are, nominating a new president of the United States. And in this regard, I want to just say how pleased I was last night when they talked about Joe Biden's role in the Violence Against Women Act originally, and now we've renewed it time and again and funded it and the rest. But one of the intellectual resources for us in that was the Native American community, because no community was affected more by violence against women. So I thank you for, again, being an intellectual resource to us, not only when we renewed it some years ago when President Obama was president, but when we are renewing it again now, and it sits on the desk of Mitch McConnell to be passed in the Senate. Because what we said when we passed it then, we have your input. Now let's see how it works, and let's get your further input about how we can do better this time. But that's how you've always been about public policy, how we can do better. When we did the Affordable Care Act, which you mentioned, Deb, we were able to, finally be able to put the Native American, the Indian Health Improvement Act in that. I had been promising we're going to pass it, we're going to pass it, we're going to pass it. But every time the Republicans would have the poison pill depriving a woman of a right to choose, and that would be an obstacle. So when the Affordable Care Bill came along, we said, this is the engine that's leaving the station. We're going to put it on. And not only did we put it on, you helped push that engine through, because that Indian Improvement Health Improvement Act was a force to get that engine down the track. So we helped our country, again, with what you have. So again, in 2018, with the most gerrymandered, voter-suppressed political arena you can name, we were able to win 40 seats to get the majority. Madam Chair, Deb Haaland and Sharice Davids. This 2020 election is even more important. It's even more important, and your engagement will be more important than ever. The Native American vote will make the difference, particularly the vote of Native youth. Thank you to all the VIPs. I'm a former chair of the California Party. That's why I identify so closely with Deb. We share our commitment to the grassroots, and we respect the volunteers in politics, which I call VIPs, volunteers in politics, and the work for organizing and mobilizing to defend and grow our House majority, to win the United States Senate, as the Senator just described, and to elect a president and a vice president. And as we do so based on the values that make our country great, redressing past grievances by admitting to them and to enjoying the blessings that come with the beautiful diversity of our country. We fought together. I've been in your homes. You've been in my home. We have friendships over the years. And again, to kind of crystallize our shared values in all of this. But again, the issue of sovereignty, as we all know, is in our Constitution, and we want to make the fullest commitment to that. We do make the fullest commitment. We want everyone in our country to do so. And again, righting the wrong of the Carcieri decision, something we've all been working on. We've had it in the House bill again and again, but not been able to make that improvement that we must make, and that's on the road ahead. So again, we want women to be free of any fear of violence, families to have access to quality, affordable care, and every community have its full economic potential. That means education and housing and transportation and water. One of the priorities that we have going into this next term, well, we have it now, but our prospect for success is soon. It's 75 days until the election, and another 2 months after that, we'll be swearing in a new Congress, and fewer than 20 days after that, a new president. And we're building the infrastructure of America in a green way. And I've told you in our meetings again and again, when we do infrastructure, it will be with the Native American community at the table. Issues that relate to water, issues that relate to infrastructure, issues that relate to respecting certain burial grounds and the rest. So it's about all of the things that affect the community that are involved in building the infrastructure in a green way, with gratitude to the Native American community for being good stewards of our environment, looking forward to many generations ahead. So with this and every reason, we're going to have a good election. Now, they will try to sabotage the election. They will try to undermine the postal system. They will try to invade the social media with their trolls and their misrepresentations. We don't agonize, we organize. Nobody knows that better than former Chair Holland. And so everybody has to have a plan for how they will vote. Have a plan. Right now, have a plan. And have that plan include voting early. Don't let them take your vote away or take your voice away. So we're going to vote early. We're going to make sure that everyone's vote is counted as cast and that we have a tremendous victory in November. It's 75 days, no wasted. Every day has to be a day of progress, no wasted time, no underutilized resources, no regrets the day after the election. So let us bring home that victory for the American people. And in doing so, we do so in a way that unifies our country, recognizes the importance of the Native American community to the success of America, and again, how inspired we are by your values, by your prayerfulness, by your strategic thinking generations ahead for the children. Thank you so much for the opportunity to bring greetings of the House Democrats, greatly enhanced by Sharice Davids and Deb Holland as members of the House Democratic Caucus. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think it was truly, inspiring to have one of the first ever Native American women in Congress introduce the very first ever female speaker in the history of the United States. That's a pretty impactful 1-2 punch there at our caucus. So that's wow. I'm stumbling for words here with how powerful and important that was. Next up, we have Representative Barbara Lee, who's somebody who's been an incredible advocate associated with the Black Lives Matter movement. We here at the DNC Native American Caucus, we believe Black Lives Matter. She would never leave us behind in regards to her work, and we're really proud to have her come and speak with us here today. So, Representative Barbara Lee, would you please take it from here?
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, first, thank you so much for your tremendous leadership, for inviting me to be with you today. And let me just say, I saw and listened to our speaker, and she, first of all, is so inspiring, but she also makes sure that all of us, especially all of us as women of color, know our power, and has done everything she can do to make sure that our aspirations and goals are embodied in the overall Democratic Caucus. So I just want to thank her for her service and her leadership, and also thank my sister, Congresswoman Deb Holland, who continues to lead the fight on so many fronts, in comprehensive legislation to remedy issues, ranging from the fight for tribal lands to the missing Indigenous women and girls pandemic. Also, I have to salute Congresswoman Sharice Davids for her leadership, because the speaker laid out the tremendous kind of leadership and information and energy and broadening our legislative agenda, one that has in many ways not been where it should have been. And now it is, because they hit the ground running. And it is so important that our Native American community remains, as Deb and Sharice has placed it, a priority in all of our legislative strategies. Also, let me just salute you, Congresswoman Holland, for your work on the drafting committee of the Democratic Party platform. I've been on the platform committee, the drafting committee, 2012, 16, and now. And I have never seen such remarkable work done on behalf of our Native American community. Deb, you're responsible for that. And I just want to say to you, I have just been amazed at how you worked this platform committee and got in the necessary planks on behalf of our Native community. So thank you so much for your leadership. And I want to reference very quickly the panel that we're focusing on highlighting the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls pandemic, because that's what it is. Native American and Alaskan Native women and girls experience a heightened risk of human trafficking and violence due to systemic vulnerabilities, such as the chronic lack of programmatic resources available to tribal governments for adequate public safety and victim services. So due to this, unfortunately, the silent crisis, and that's what it is, of missing, murdered Indigenous women has devastated families and communities, further adding to the generational trauma originating from failed federal termination and assimilation policies. Human trafficking, it's a frequent issue, both in Indian country and for urban Indians, due to the disproportionately high rates of domestic violence, sexual assault, and the murder rates that Native Americans unfortunately experience. The minimum federal programs and resources that are available to combat violent victim crime in Indian country and urban areas, they really don't have the infrastructure or strategy to resolve this issue. And that has resulted in the failure to coordinate services and federal resources to efficiently consider the unique needs to serve American Indian and Alaskan Native communities. As a member of the Appropriations Committee, believe you me, we are fighting for, thanks to Deb and Sharice, additional resources to make sure that we address this very endemic and systemic issue. But also, Deb, I want to thank you for your bill, Not Invisible Act of 2019. I think that's HR 2438, which is bipartisan, and it helps alleviate this issue by establishing an advisory committee on violent crime to combat the missing persons, murder, and trafficking of Native Americans and Alaska Natives. This is long overdue. We've got to work to get that passed. Also, Deb's bill, Bridging Agency Data Gaps and Ensuring Safety for Native Communities Act, or it's called the Badges Act for Native Communities, that will work to really make sure that violence against Native women, address the missing and murdered Indigenous women crisis, and bolster public safety in Indian country. That means we will have the strategy, the framework, the legislative responsibility to do exactly what this bill does. For generations, of course, the U.S. government has treated Native communities as an afterthought. From limited access to quality health care, rampant poverty, lack of access to clean water, insufficient federal funding resources, the Native American community, quite frankly, is hurting. And it is unconscionable to think that in the middle of this pandemic, we still haven't done what we needed to do on behalf of our Native people. So Deb is working so hard to make sure that American Indian and Alaska Natives have the best possible health care, access to quality culturally education, public education, and we need a president and a vice president that understands tribes and the federal trust responsibility to tribes. And so I just want to thank you again for giving me a chance to be with you, and just know that we're working together. We have a tri-caucus plus two. All of us are working together within our Democratic caucus to really make sure that all of the issues which Deb and Sharice champion become law of the land, and that we elect our presidential nominee. I always say elect presidential nominee and vice presidential nominee Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to the White House so that we'll have an administration that will take the ball and run with it with all of the groundwork and the energy and the focus and the legislation that Congresswoman Holland has already presented that she's organized around. As the speaker said, we got to organize, organize, and organize. So thank you again so much, Deb. Thank you for your tremendous service. And it's good to see everyone. Hi, Raul. Good to see you. Thank
you, Representative Barbara Lee. And I mean, I think in terms of your ending there, there's nothing, that says our
said that someone who has been passionate and committed to the church world and honored to have him join us here with those senior savers. Thank you for that commitment and the overall drive to get out and fight for
Indian country, engage in Indian country. So, Senator Sanders, if you would take it from here. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words to you today. Time and time again, our Native American brothers and sisters have seen the federal government break solemn promises and huge corporations put profits ahead of the sovereign rights of Native communities. This must and will change. On November 3rd, we must elect an administration that will fight for the sovereignty, justice, opportunity, and dignity of Native people. The pain and the lies must end. We all know the plight of Native Americans is not as well known in this country as it should be. People are suffering, who are in many cases seeing life expectancy, unbelievably, the equivalent of struggling third world countries, where healthcare in Native countries is unbelievably inadequate, and where educational opportunities are limited. And these crises, of course, have only been made worse by the coronavirus pandemic. I don't have to tell you that we are coming up on the most consequential election of our lifetimes. This November, we are fighting for a Democratic administration that will respect Native American sovereignty and respect the treaties that have been signed. An administration that will work as full partners with your community, rather than treat Native Americans as subordinates or worse. I'm proud of our work together to defeat the Keystone XL pipeline and the fight against other pipelines like the Dakota Access Pipeline, to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act so each tribal government has jurisdiction over domestic violence crimes, and the funding for tribal criminal justice systems, and to fight for the right for a good, free education, no matter who you are. But there is so much more to be done. My fundamental belief, and the belief of Joe Biden, is that Native Americans must have the strongest possible say in the future of their communities. First and foremost, we need an administration that upholds the trust responsibility and that guarantees housing, including by greatly increasing the funding for the Indian Housing Block Grant Program. We need an administration that works to restore tribal lands and protects the sacred places in Native American languages and culture. And we need a Democratic administration in Congress that will fight every day to provide Native communities with health care as a human right. Perhaps most significantly, we must fight to stop irreversible climate damage and pass unprecedented environmental policies that create millions of good-paying jobs, including in local Native communities, and that reverses the damage done to Indian country and other lands and resources. Most immediately, we need to turn back Republican efforts to suppress voting rights in Native communities, including through voter ID laws and a lack of mail delivery, a problem made worse by Trump's attack on the Postal Service. Since 2017, we have all watched with horror as Trump has pushed budget cuts for the Department of Interior, which oversees the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Bureau of Indian Education, and the Office of Special Trustees for American Indians. Together with Joe Biden as president and a Democratic Congress, we will strongly reverse that trend. Brothers and sisters, as we all know, the Trump administration is the most corrupt in history. But there is something that I find even more offensive than Trump's corruption, and that is his fundamental strategy of dividing us up, of attacking people based on their race, their religion, their sexual orientation, or their immigration status. In my view, a president's job is to unite us, to bring us together no matter what fundamental problems we face. We can and we must face them together. The Native American people have enriched this country, and you have educated this country and taught us that we are a part of nature, and we cannot destroy nature and still survive. So let me thank you again for your work, your contributions, and your spirit. Let's go win this election and turn this country around. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Senator Sanders, for your commitment and making the time to be with us here today. Next up is somebody in any country that really should need no introduction. There's really no stronger advocate in the House for Indian country than Representative Raul Grijalva from the great state of Arizona. We're really honored to have him join us here today. He's somebody that has always had an impassioned commitment to us in Indian country and ensuring that our voice and our seat at the table is maintained and fought for. So Representative Grijalva, if you would take it from here. And, again, truly, I mean those words. You are an incredible champion for us.
Oh, very kind.
Thank you.
Very kind. And I have the privilege and the good fortune of being chairman of the Natural Resources Committee, a committee that as of recent time has taken very seriously its constitutional and trust responsibility with regards to Indian country, and a serious responsibility that the Resources Committee has displayed the attitude, and that's the attitude it should have been from the beginning, that Indian country on or off the reservation for indigenous people should never be an afterthought. It has to be front and center of the discussion. The history and the legacy, the relationship by the federal government to indigenous people and First Americans in this country is a legacy marked with tragedy, cruelty, and neglect. And as such, there is much to be done. And I think that the committee did a couple of things. And we've been very fortunate. We've had good, solid support from the Democrats in this committee for initiatives that are important to Indian country. And the leadership that the vice chair of the committee now, Ms. Holland, brings to us, provides us a focus, an energy, and a leadership that is very, very important to the work of the committee. And I'm so appreciative of her role and her leadership that she's lent to this committee. One of the things we wanted to do is not only work on legislation, not only assure the funding, not only protect sacred sites, not only deal with issues of co-management and mutual support with regard to conservation and our public lands in Indian country, the protecting of Chaco Canyon, the protecting of the Grand Canyon, Bears Ears, the Carcieri fix, and expanding the issue of trust responsibility. All those are important. Missing and murdered indigenous women, responding to the education needs. And one of the ways has been to provide to this country, through the committee, the faces, the voices, the presence, and the leadership of Native American people in this country. And I think that has done more to move our Congress to begin to take the role that they have of trust in a very, very serious way. And those discussions are at all levels. We don't restrict that Native participation on the panel is restricted just because it has to be an Indian thing. No, climate change, conservation, national parks, whatever the topic is within the realm of this jurisdiction of this committee, we make a sincere and concerted effort with the great help of Vice Chair Holland to make sure that there is representation there. That table is occupied and that leadership is highlighted. But we have much to do because one of the things that has happened in the dismantling of the Interior Department by the Trump administration, the putting up for sale of our public lands and our assets, our treasures, and our cultural and holy places has been this cavalier attitude with regard to Indian country, that it is an afterthought, that the value is the resource in Indian country in terms of extraction or water or crossing with a pipeline, as opposed to the value and the need that Indian country has for the people that have to be dealt with a level of equity and support. So, and this pandemic, we have to talk about that. Opened the door that many of us knew was there and put a glare on something we all knew were there. The historical pre-existing conditions in Indian country on and off the reservation. And as much as the Trump administration and the allies in Interior have fumbled, excused, and ineptly and incompetently not protected the American people as a whole, it is more pronounced what happened in Indian country in terms of infection and mortality. And what did that door open? That pandemic open to those pre-existing conditions? Poverty, lack of resources, and neglect and racism. It opened those doors. And I think the leadership in Indian country has been unbelievable in bringing this issue into the forefront of the neglect and the consequences of that neglect hitting Indian country now. So going forward, I think I'm firmly convinced that the Biden-Harris ticket is an opportunity to put in place things that are happening in Indian country as we speak. I think the issue of sovereignty, respect for treaty obligations, trust responsibility is being redefined, and it's being redefined by Native leadership and Native people. And I think Congress has to catch up to that redefinition. And the structural reforms, and I'll be one to say that when it comes to the Bureau of Indian Affairs and associated sub-agencies, that a complete reconfiguration and systemic reform of that agency, how it functions, its status within the Interior Department is a number one goal for myself and for the committee. So I think that this election is about what this country can become. And I think there is no better perspective about what this country can become than Native people. Seeing that circle closing, and that we have to deal with climate, we have to deal with inequity, we have to deal with issues of opportunity. And central to that is the consistency, the historical presence, and the humanity. The first American were to working with the new administration that we rid ourselves of the aberration and concentrate on what is ahead of us in the future. And I, being an optimist, believe that future is good. And for Indian country, it is an opportunity that I think we all should work very hard to make sure that we accomplish. With that, thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you. And my friend Deb, hello, good to see you.
Thank you, Representative Grijalva. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your fire and passion for fighting for all of us in Indian country. Next, we're going to move on to our Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women panel. But before I get started on that, what I wanted to do was I hope everybody had an opportunity to watch the convention last night and see the passion. And to me, the image that I have the most vivid image of is Vice President Biden, or Senator Biden at the time, sitting on that panel, listening to the women that had been abused and neglected and treated with horrible disrespect, and just the searing vision of that. He, has shown a long commitment to the Violence Against Women Act in terms of getting it established and getting it put in place. And that's something that we need to remember. He was also part and parcel with ensuring that we had the VAWA provisions that expanded for Indian country. So let's remember that too. But the most important thing I think we all need to remember is we need to remember and listen to the voices from our community in regards to this, and how we can do better, and how we can, fight for our women. So there's no better advocate and no better fighter, no fiercer fighter than Representative Deb Haaland on this issue, and she's going to moderate this panel. Thank you, Representative Haaland, for making the time to do this. I know this is an area that is incredibly important to you individually, and something that you're committed to making sure our voices are heard on. So if you would take it from here, and thank you to the panel for sharing your stories, and thank you for joining us. My hands are raised up to you, Miigwech. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ryan. And Chairman Grijalva, my chairman, it's an honor, such an honor to serve with him, and just appreciate all the efforts on behalf of Indian country. So I'm happy to be back with you. Today I wear red for all the stolen mothers, daughters, sisters, aunties, and nieces. And thank you again for inviting me to be here with you to talk about one of my top priorities in Congress and in life, and that is us solving the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women. This epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls has too long been overlooked. It is my mission to raise our voices, shine a light on it, bring legislative solutions. And there are so many aspects of the problem that need attention. This is not something that will be fixed with one piece of legislation. This has been an ongoing issue since colonization began in the late 1400s. So with that being said, we need to know the breadth of the problem. We know that Native women face murder rates that are 10 times higher than the national average. We know families are left without answers, but we don't even know the full extent of the crisis because of the lack of data. Over recent decades, thousands have disappeared, but the exact number and their fates are unknown because there's no single federal database tracking our stolen sisters. Indian country has been severely underfunded for many decades, including a dire lack of funding for roads, cell service, broadband, and public safety departments. Recently, I had the chance to speak directly with Vice President Biden about missing and murdered Indigenous women, and he gave me his direct commitment that it would be a priority in his administration. Also, in his women's policy platform, it speaks specifically to Native women in the Violence Against Women section, recognizing the progress made in the 2013 VAWA reauthorization and the need to go further. The Democratic platform also acknowledges the need to expand the list of crimes that can be prosecuted to include stalking, child abuse, and trafficking. I also included several additional amendments to strengthen when it passed the House, including victim services to urban Indians and state courts and increased access to the TAP database. We still need the Senate to take it up. We passed the bill. It's sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk. Last fall, the Biden campaign attended the first ever forum on missing and murdered Indigenous women hosted by the Blackfeet Nation, and Biden submitted a statement outlining his commitment to taking on this crisis through a comprehensive approach. And I quote, "One that closes the data gap, supports tribes in building their own programs, expands tribal authority, grows coordination among law enforcement agencies, and expands access to culturally sensitive resources for victims and survivors." You can absolutely find these issues of what we're working on my website. And I am, and that being said, I am so honored to have Grace Bulltail, a citizen of the Crow tribe. Grace is from Montana. She is a member of the Crow tribe and a descendant of the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara tribes of Fort Berthold, North Dakota. Grace is currently an assistant professor in the Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Grace completed a doctoral program in the Department of Biological and Environmental Engineering at Cornell University. Her research interests include water resource management, water policy, tribal sovereignty, watershed impacts from natural resource development. She is currently a member of the American Indian Science and Engineering Society Board of Directors and is a professional engineer licensed in the state of California. Grace, I am so happy to have you here with us today, and I'm just honored to be with you. And I want to, I'll just launch into questions, and certainly if there's something I missed on your resume, we would love to hear more. But I'll start out with this question. Could you please share with us why and how you got involved in becoming an advocate for MMIW?
Thank you, Congresswoman Holland. I want to speak today about my niece, Kaysara Stops Pretty Places. I helped my grandparents raise Kaysara, and I consider her to be my daughter. Kaysara is Crow, Northern Cheyenne, Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara tribes. She was beloved by her large extended families, and despite hardships that many of our Native youth face, she was kind, loving, and a compassionate soul. This past Friday, Kaysara should have been celebrating her 19th birthday. Instead, 4 days from now, will mark a year since Kaysara was last seen alive in Hardin, a Montana border town. A relative reported Kaysara missing several times to Bighorn County law enforcement when she did not return home on August 24th. Law enforcement never filed a missing persons report for Kaysara. Our family was notified on September 11th that Kaysara's body had been found in Hardin on August 29th, and she remained a Jane Doe for nearly 2 weeks. No one in our family was interviewed by law enforcement after Kaysara was identified. Her death was not treated as a homicide. The coroner and the county's sole funeral director, who forced Kaysara's mother to cremate her remains, which is against our family's belief, due to the condition of her body. After Kaysara's funeral, the coroner, Terry Bullock, stated to me that when a toxicology report came back, that the cause of death would be exposure due to drug or alcohol substance. To this day, we have no information from law enforcement about any investigation into Kaysara's death. We waited 16 weeks for Kaysara's autopsy report, which was withheld from my family because it disproved the coroner and law enforcement's assumption that Kaysara was at fault for her own death. Kaysara's only fault was being an Indigenous teenager in a county, state, and country that does not value her life. Our calls go unheard by those in the Montana justice system. We are left to do our own investigation and navigate this unjust system without advocacy. Law enforcement would like us to believe that Kaysara lay in a yard next door to the residence where she was last seen alive for days and went undiscovered. We refuse to believe this and have pushed back, marched, and protested. My family, along with other families, are devastated, and we should not have to confront the indignities our girls still face in death that are the result of the little value that is placed on their lives.
Grace, that is a heartbreaking story, and I send my deepest condolences to you and your family. I am so sorry, and that's precisely why we're doing the work that we can so that this doesn't happen to anyone else. Grace, what are some of the resources or advocacy that have been helpful for you and your family?
Sure. I just want to say that I have reached out to several candidates' campaigns regarding their plans for addressing MMIW in the state. My family has been ignored from the current Attorney General, Tim Fox, who is from the border town where my niece went missing. She was not on tribal land, and our calls to other Senate candidates and those currently in office have gone ignored. Last year, the Attorney General created the MMIP task force in this case, the Montana Missing Indigenous Persons Task Force. Although Montana can be synonymous for murdered for many of our Indigenous women and girls, this initiative does not address or plan to address the murders of Indigenous people in the state. And in my family's case, it has done just that. As far as advocacy, I've been grateful for the support my family as well as others have received from Mary Catherine Nagel at Pipestem Law, the Sovereign Bodies Institute, which before the pandemic was leading a MMIK initiative in southeastern Montana and was building critical momentum. The NIWRC is also supporting families and my families in a call to action for justice for Kisara, which will be held August 24th through September 11th to mark the time that she was stolen from us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Grace. Thank you for your bravery, for letting us grieve with you. And I promise you that we are going to do everything we can to make this right with you. And I thank you so much for being here with us this afternoon. I'd like to now turn to Shara Giles. Shara Giles, she is a citizen of the Muskogee Creek Nation. She's the chairwoman of the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center. Shara Giles is a citizen of the Muskogee Creek Nation and of Cherokee descent. She is from the Bird Clan and Broken Arrow tribal town. She served over 10 years on the Muskogee Creek Nation National Council, where she had been the youngest female elected to the National Council to date and the first female elected as second speaker. Shara received her Master of Social Work degree from the University of Oklahoma. We're so proud and honored to have her with us today. And Shara, I'll just launch into questions too, so we don't spend time. You have been an advocate and a leader for the Violence Against Women Act for missing and murdered women and girls, Native love for over a decade. What is different in 2020 with the movement around MMIW?
Thank you, Representative Holland. Definitely 2020's proven its challenges. It's also proven some great success stories. Recently, the Supreme Court had ruled for my tribe, the Muskogee Creek Nation, that our reservation status remains intact. And so looking at that, that's one huge victory, but now it's time for us to really shine and really say, okay, how do we protect not only our tribal women, but women in our community, women that live in our reservations? But the funding's not there, and that's a huge issue. 2020 has proven very hopeful. We, with this candidacy, with this election year, we are very hopeful for new changes with increased funding. As you had mentioned, has been mentioned numerous times, legislation that is pending, and we are looking and pushing for that VAWA reauthorization and the reauthorization of the Family Violence Prevention and Services Act as well. And so having you there, Deb, has been a tremendous a blessing. It has been, answers to many, many prayers for many years. And as an advocate and a survivor myself of domestic violence and sexual assault, it's been important for me just to say, how can I help? How can I give back? And then that's what we're doing, just like stories that we've heard today. Even though we don't have statistics and we don't have data, we have these stories. And that's what we had to do back in 2013 when we were trying to get VAWA reauthorized and understanding the inherent, sovereign right of tribal communities and governments, and saying tribes know best how to take care of their people. But we have to have the resources, and we have to be given the authority to do that. Unfortunately, we have to fight for that, and our tribes are not seen as sovereign governments. So we're constantly at that battle and constantly trying to get people to understand that. And unfortunately, my tribe, even being in Oklahoma, where there's 38 federally recognized tribes, that story still goes unknown and untold. So we have to keep making sure that those stories are front and present. And when we're looking at everything in a total, that missing and murdered is not new. Like you said before, it's since contact. This is a 500-year-old problem. So we first need to acknowledge it and then start looking at real solutions. And the solutions are going to come from our tribal communities. Yes. And that's what we do through the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center, is with our staff and our board of directors. We are working with tribal programs. We are working with tribal coalitions to making sure we're expressing their voices on a national scene and pushing national policy that best affect tribal communities, because we're not all the same. Mm-hmm. So we just appreciate that 2020 is bringing those opportunities. It's a time that, we're quarantining at home. It's a time for education. It's a time for reaching out. And so it's been amazing that our allies in the communities are starting to reach out now and saying, hey, what is this about? Where can I learn more? So it's important that we have resources available. As you said, your website has links to that information. NIWRC website has links to information and resources. We've even created a toolkit for when a loved one does go missing. What are the next best steps to do? So it's a lifelong process, as you said, but we will get there.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Last question for you. What is the call to action for people who are watching this right now? What is your call to action for all of us to make sure that we are doing what we need to do to make sure this issue gets solved?
The absolute best, the quickest thing we can all do is vote. We make sure that all of our people are registered to vote, our young people. Don't forget those that are maybe unsheltered. There's opportunity for everyone to vote. And I think a lot of times people don't think about those citizens that still are eligible to vote that are not exercising that right. So that's the quickest, most important thing we can do, is remind each other, take each other to the polls, get there, and then remind people it's as easy as a phone call or an email or a text message to reach out to our congressional and elected leaders to remind them what are the issues that we are facing in our tribal communities, and that we best know the solutions for those as well.
That's the best answer ever. Vote, everyone, and answer the census too. I'll just add that on to a call to action. Shara, I'm so honored to have the opportunity to speak with you here today. Thank you very much for coming. I am proud to work on this issue. I'm proud to know you and Grace, and I promise you we're going to keep moving it forward. I knew it before, but my work in Congress has only solidified my experience that a key to moving our work forward is in building coalitions. I know also that there are Black kids that go missing at twice the rate of white kids. Hispanic girls go missing. Data is missing on people of color. So when we're out on the streets protesting, we also need to be standing up for our coalition and allied partners, whether with the Black Lives Matter movement or for all of our dreamers. I am honored to be here. And with that, Ryan, I will give it back to you.
Thank you, Congresswoman, and thank you all for your wonderful words and on this incredibly important topic, missing and murdered Indigenous women. There can't be anything more important and near and dear to all of our hearts than that issue. I mean, our women, our girls, they are the mothers of our communities, grandmothers of our communities, and we need to do all we can to protect them. So thank you for your beautiful words and your commitment to fighting for our families. So thank you. Up next, we have a number of videos first, we're going to lead off with a video from Gwen Moore. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to make it. So we have a video from her. And then we also have 3 videos that we wanted to highlight of Native Americans running for federal office. We're really excited to see all the natives that we have engaging, fighting for our communities. And so, please, listen to their voices. Go look them up on Facebook and, pledge your support, get out and do anything you can to support them. So we're going to start off with with Representative Gwen Moore, and then Congresswoman Gwen Moore, and then we're going to move over to those videos. So enjoy the videos. Like I said, get out and fight for our Native candidates. Log on, support, chip in $1, $2, $10, whatever you can do. But enjoy the videos, and then we're going to come up with our Get Out the Vote panel. And so thank you all, and enjoy the videos.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Gwen Moore, representing the 4th Congressional District of Wisconsin. The United States government has a profound legal and moral obligation toward Native American tribes and indigenous communities, the 11 tribes in Wisconsin, which make our state beautiful and sacred. We must work to increase funding, resources, and financial tools for tribes, particularly in the key areas of criminal justice, healthcare, education, and housing. Now is the time for common sense leadership and compassion. And the only ticket I know with those qualities is Biden-Harris.
Hey there, everybody. It's great to be on here with all of you at the DNC Native American Caucus. I'm Rudy Soto, Shoshone-Bannock tribal member, veteran, and Democratic nominee for Congress in Idaho's 1st District, the western side of the state. I'm excited to be bringing a different set of perspectives and experiences to the table. I'm unlike most people who run for high public office, and my reasons for running are deeply personal. I'm running for everyday Idahoans, Americans, and indigenous peoples from all walks of life who struggle to make ends meet and simply seek a fair shot at the American dream. I'm running for people like my dad, who back in 2014 lost his factory job, lost his health insurance, got sick a short time later, couldn't get treatment in time, and lost his life. He died with less than a sense of dignity than he deserved. This story is all too common throughout Indian country and America. I want to bring an end to this. That's why I chose to come home and run. I went to work after that for the National Council of Urban Indian Health on getting people enrolled in the Affordable Care Act because I wanted to turn that pain into purpose. Then I went to work as a staffer in Congress. Then I went to work for the National Indian Gaming Association. And then in 2018, something huge happened. In my home state of Idaho, a ballot initiative was brought before the voters on the expansion of Medicaid, and over 60% of people voted in support of it to bring health care to nearly 100,000 low-income Idahoans. That inspired me. 16 out of 19 counties in Idaho's 1st District voted in support of that in the face of stiff and strong opposition, led by the person that I'm running against. I'm excited that we've garnered a lot of support. I've gotten the endorsement and backing of many tribes throughout the country, state and local elected leaders here, former members of Congress, current members of Congress, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus's campaign arm, Bold PAC, the League of Conservation Voters, and many others that are joining in our cause. But I can't do this without your backing and your support. The last Federal Election Commission filing report showed that I fell $2,321 shy of matching my opponent, Congressman Fulcher, in fundraising. He had 16 individual contributors and corporate PACs. I had over 600 small individual donors at an average of $19 per person. So to the extent that it's within your personal capacity or your tribe's ability to pitch in and help me, it will go a huge way. So please go onto my website, rudysoto.us. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Rudy for Congress, and help me put this seat into play. We can do this with your help. Thank you so much.
Ho-Chunk means people of the big voice, and my Ho-Chunk relatives were true to their name. They would not be silenced in their beloved homeland of Wisconsin, even after being forced away. Over 10 times on cattle cars to South Dakota and Nebraska, the Ho-Chunk kept coming home. Finally, the government heard the big voice of the Ho-Chunk and stopped removing us from Wisconsin, the beautiful land that tradition tells us is our duty to take care of. I'm Tricia Zunker. In my grandmother's time, our Ho-Chunk relatives sold baskets like these on the side of the road to make ends meet and preserve their way of life. These examples and more taught me that, no matter what, be a big voice for myself, my family, and our community. I remember as a child standing on a union picket line with my mother and her coworkers to save their health care. And during one snowstorm, when my mom's car got stuck in the driveway on her way to work, she wrapped herself in a blanket and walked 4 miles to her job because we couldn't go one day without her wages. And my grandfather, who got up before dawn to work hard every day to keep his small dairy farm afloat, still managed to find time in his mid-50s to earn his high school diploma. Their hard work made it possible for me to be the first person in my family to go to college, become a lawyer, and a university professor. And with that opportunity comes a responsibility to keep giving back to my community, where I serve as a justice on the Ho-Chunk Supreme Court and president of the Wausau School Board. Now, I'm running for Congress to take on the big problems facing Wisconsin today. Drug and insurance companies are gouging patients. Trump's trade wars and climate change are threatening our farmers. And unchecked Wall Street greed hurts our small businesses and working families. Special interests and Washington politicians try to silence us, but we can't let them. Like my family taught me, we need to stand together, fight for what's right, and never give up. All our family's futures depend on it. Join me to bring a big voice for Wisconsin to Congress.
Hello everyone, I'm Paulette Jordan, and I'm running to be Idaho's first female senator and the country's first Native American woman in the U.S. Senate. I'm a born and raised Idahoan, and I'm a working mother of 2 young sons, and I am a proud member of the Coeur d'Alene tribe. I grew up on the reservation on our family farmland and served as a member of my tribal council. I then served 2 terms in the Idaho legislature, representing a traditionally, quote, red district. And in 2018, I was the first female, first Native American Democratic gubernatorial candidate for Idaho. And even though unsuccessful, we brought in more votes than any other Democratic gubernatorial or congressional candidate in Idaho's history. And today, we're continuing that movement. And our race is gauging national attention as a winnable seat with a vulnerable incumbent in Jim Risch. And for the first time in a very long time, we've got a real shot at a Senate seat in Idaho. That is why we're seeing a surge in momentum with endorsements from the DSCC, Democracy for America, the National Women's Political Caucus, and others. And in the past, Idaho has been known as a red state, but it's not really party that Idahoans are concerned about. It's livelihood, it's healthcare, it's their children's future. And Idaho is largely independent-minded. Whether they are registered with either party, they just want leadership that is willing to be a voice for them, not for the corporations that are trying to buy our government. They want a voice for this planet, our mother, and see that we must defend the rights of nature, save our sacred salmon that are going extinct here in Idaho, and restore our river systems back to health. I will be that voice for Idaho. As Indigenous people, we don't subscribe to the 2-party system. We're largely independent, just like Idahoans are largely independent. And we offer a new style of leadership that this country has never seen before. And it's long overdue that women step into the highest leadership positions in government. In Indigenous communities, women have been leading for centuries as the matriarchs of our people, as chiefs. I'm encouraged by the spirit of awakening that has taken over this country, that we can aspire to build as Americans that live up to the promise of liberty and justice for all. We have a huge opportunity here. If we elect the right leaders with the right values, we can heal this country and become stronger than ever before. So I'm asking you to join our movement for People First policy and a new generation of leadership willing to take bold action, where government isn't ruled by hyper-partisanship or corporate campaign contributions. So please do me a favor and grab out your phone and follow us at Elect Paulette, and go to our website at pauletteforsenate.com to sign up for our updates. Sign up as a virtual volunteer for phone and text banking right from where you are today. Also, please consider making a contribution, because proudly we're a grassroots people-powered campaign, but we also need financial support to help us reach as many people as possible, register new voters we need, and get us across the finish line in November. So thank you for listening and supporting. God bless each and every one of you, your families, and your homelands. Please take care of one another, take care of yourselves, and stay safe. I love you all, my family. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paulette Jordan, coming to you from beautiful McCall, Idaho, the homelands of my great-grandfather, Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce Nation. And thank you for being here. I'm a member of the Coeur d'Alene tribe, running to be Idaho's first female senator and the country's first Native American woman in the U.S. Senate. And I know we have many good relatives joining today's meeting, and I want to thank you all for your support. And if you haven't gotten involved yet or signed up to join our campaign for updates, I want to ask you to get involved now at pauletteforsenate.com. And I want to ask you to get involved in all of our other candidates' campaigns as they all are continuing to champion our issues. And so we need to support them and ensure that they not only have the voices in Congress, but also in the halls of the U.S. Senate, because we need representation and voices for Indian country. And in order to do that, we need to get out the Native vote. So I have been asked to introduce and welcome my dear brother and longtime good friend, Van Jones, to the Native American Caucus. Van is a CNN host. He's the CEO of Reform Alliance, which is an initiative that was founded by Jay-Z, Meek Mill, and many others. And he's also a 3-time New York Times best-selling author. Van is a CNN host and political commentator. He's been a leader in the fight for criminal justice reform for more than 25 years. He has founded and led many thriving social enterprises, including the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, Color of Change, and the Dream Corps. And he's helped lead the charge to help the First Step Act, which is a bipartisan federal bill that is the most substantial breakthrough in criminal justice in a generation. And Van is the proud father of 2 beautiful sons, and I know them, they're gorgeous. He is one of the most influential political commentators, and Indian country is very fortunate to have him in our corner, bringing awareness to the issues we face as Indigenous peoples in America. And he has brought mainstream coverage to many of our fights in Indian country, like COVID relief for tribes, murdered and missing Indigenous women, the Dakota Access Pipeline, voter suppression, racist mascots. And I'm proud of the work that he's been doing and continues to do to create visibility of Indigenous peoples and other people of color in media. So thank you, Van, my very dear brother. I love you so much. I appreciate you for being here and fighting with us. We want to express our love and appreciation for all that you do. We're very excited to have him here for this panel. Get out the Native vote. And with that, Van Jones, everybody.
Hey, well, it's an honor to be here. Paulette, one of my dear friends. Everybody in politics says, "Oh, it's my friend, my friend." Paulette is actually my friend, not a political friend, like a real friend. And I love her very much. And this is where it all comes together. This panel, everything that's been discussed, everything that has been so enlightening. But if we don't get the vote out, if we don't get the election to turn out the right way, it just remains prayers. It just remains hopes. It just remains talk. And so this is an election where literally every vote is going to matter. It's going to mean a tremendous amount. And the tribal vote, the Native American vote, could determine the outcome. So we are very, very blessed to have an unbelievable panel here, 4 great leaders who know what they're talking about, people who know how to roll the sleeves up and get it done. And I'm just going to ask a few questions, but I mainly want to make time to hear from them and make sure that we all get our marching orders and figure out how we're going to win this election. The first person we're going to hear from is Clara Pratt. She's with the Biden for President campaign. She is the tribal organizer director. But we're also going to hear from Ruth Ann of Buffalo, who is the giant slayer, pulled off an unbelievable victory in the North Dakota 27th district, which we'll talk about and what we learned from that. We have a real hero, not just a hero in the movies, but a real hero of the environment and human rights and tribal rights and human dignity. Mark Ruffalo is going to be here. I always love talking to that brother. Another person I can say is an actual real friend. We don't talk as much as we need to, but he's always there for me when I need him and vice versa. And then also Jody Archambault. Jody Archambault. Jody's got a new last name, but I should know the first name. I've known Jody for a long time as well. We were in the Obama administration together. So it's an all-star cast of real people who do real stuff, not people with just names and titles, people who know how to fight and win. And I want to please welcome Clara to this conversation right now.
Thank you, Van. It's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to be here with all these amazing panelists. And I've had the opportunity to meet and work with many of them, and I'm just excited to be here to talk about this very important topic.
Well, listen, I mean, given your role with the campaign, I think the most important thing I would like to understand from you is we are in a very different environment when it comes to voting, when it comes to getting the vote out because of this pandemic, because of this plague, because of this virus. I wonder how you are thinking about this COVID-19 challenge, the importance of us overcoming it, and also how we can overcome it.
Absolutely. COVID has hit Indian country extremely hard. I'm from the Navajo Nation, born and raised on the Navajo Nation, really appreciate Mr. Ruffalo's work there. And, we're seeing the real devastating impacts of what that means for our tribal communities and what underfunded Indian Health Service means and the impact that can have. What it means in a voting sense is it's simultaneously more important than ever for time to out the vote. So what we're doing from a campaign perspective is we're making sure that we partner with our local resources, our state directors, our regional directors, to make sure we're meeting people where they're at. If they're comfortable voting in person, we certainly want to encourage that. However, if they're not, and many people are not, many tribal communities are not, we want to make sure that they have all the correct factual information they need to cast their votes. Because unlike some other people, we want everybody to have the right to vote. Native peoples have the highest rates of military service in the nation. We've got a lot of people that, fought and died for our right to be able to vote. And here in the state of Arizona, we didn't get the right to vote as Native peoples till much, much later than others. So it's a hard fought right that we are not going to give up. We want to make sure that every person casts their vote, and we make sure that it's a responsibility. It's a sacred right. Native peoples, unfortunately, have been disenfranchised over many, many years, which is another hurdle to overcome in addition to COVID. So what we're doing here on Navajo Nation, as well as other tribal communities, we're going to make it safe, we're going to make it effective, and we're going to make it fact-based so that people have all the data they can to vote early and to vote safely.
Well, look, I appreciate everything that you're doing, and people may want more information about this, in particular, how to overcome some of those barriers. Does the campaign have a website or anything yet for us to do so people from this community can know how to vote if they need to, or how's that going to be handled?
Absolutely. So if you text vote to 30330, it will send you a text back immediately asking for your zip code, and you put in your zip code and it responds back exactly how you can make sure you are registered, where your local area is to get registered. So everybody's got these smartphones nowadays, even our most rural areas. So text vote to 30330 and that'll pop you right back to where you need to go.
So it's 30330, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. Well, listen, I one person who really knows the importance of every vote is going to be the next person that we talk to, Ruth Anna. I call her the Dragon Slayer, the Giant Killer. She went up against a longtime incumbent Republican and won that fight the hard way. She didn't buy it. She earned it. And I would love to bring her to the stage to talk about how she won that fight and the importance of overcoming voter suppression in North Dakota and other places. Please welcome Ruth Anna.
Good odds. Thank you. On behalf of my family, the Mandan Hidatsa Narikara Nation, and the District 27 people here in South Fargo, I want to say thank you for the invite. It's an honor to be here with all of you today. I'm originally from Mandaree, which is located on the western side of the state, but I'm serving here right now a 4-year term in South Fargo on the original homelands of the Dakota people and the Anishinaabe people. And to answer your two questions, we have to be talking to everybody. I ran for office in 2016 with 2 other Native Americans, both from Standing Rock. I ran for state insurance commissioner. And although I didn't win, there was so many successes along the way, especially right within my own family unit. A lot of my first cousins had come out to vote for the very first time ever. And they were a few years older than me. And so we have to be talking to everybody. We cannot leave new voters out or behind. And our young people, I believe, really play an integral part in our democracy. And so door knocking, although we can't really do door knocking right now during these COVID-19 times, I've been helping a lot of candidates who are adjusting to these COVID-19 times. And as Native Americans, we have very strong family values. And so I would encourage everybody to talk to your family, your friends, because we have to vote in this election. It's so important. So in our Native American community, we know that we have to have these conversations in our families to start talking and making a plan on how we're going to vote, especially our tribal rural communities. We have to look at making a plan that also includes calling your county auditor right now and getting the information on what's going to happen if you're going to be able to apply for a mail-in ballot, vote from your home, or look at alternatives. We need drop boxes in every communities. Our tribal communities have a lot of challenges because we don't have a very sound infrastructure. And so making a plan, having these conversations within your household is so important. There are 3 women running for office, 3 Native American women running for office here in North Dakota, 2 from the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation. And we don't have a Democrat west of the Missouri River here in North Dakota. So that shows that we have so much work to do, but we also have to show up and vote for not only our Native candidates, but we have to do our part and show up in this election. Indian country cannot be ignored, and so we need everybody to come out and vote. Digital presence throughout social media has always kind of been one thing that Native America is strong in, but we have to continue to talk to each other, talk to our communities, because that's where our voice matters so much. We have to invest in our communities, and people will listen to us, especially those who love and respect us the most, and that means our family unit. So I'm really stressing the importance of doing what you can from where you're at within your reach by having these conversations with your families, encouraging them to get out and vote.
Well, with Anna, I think that's really important because people won't be able to knock on doors in the same way. I know you knocked on 7,000 doors, something like that, some crazy number of doors, and you did it that way. The reality is we do have these smartphones, and we have enough people in. If everybody in your smartphone voted, we win. So it's a question of, are you willing to make all those calls and send all those text messages? So I just appreciate you and admire you so much. And I want to bring up next another person we all appreciate and admire, the good brother, Mark Ruffalo. This guy he's no joke. He's not somebody who's just doing this for I want a picture, I want an award, I want this, I want that. I've seen this guy in Flint, Michigan, helping Black folks who don't have a penny to their name, trying to get fresh water. Got a chance to walk beside him doing that. He's there at Standing Rock. He's there in tribal country during the COVID crisis. They're fighting around the question of voter suppression. This is not somebody who's a fly-by-night, hey, this is trendy. This is somebody who's using everything he's got to try to win real justice. I want to just welcome Mark Ruffalo and ask him first, before we get to anything else. Brother, why do you care so much? Why do you fight so hard? Why is your heart so big that it includes everybody, including everybody on this call? Mark Ruffalo.
Thanks, Van, and you are a friend. I appreciate it. And I'm here in New York, Lenape and Munsee, ancient territories. So I'm glad to be here. I guess, believe it or not, those stories I heard about, those religious stories about all the prophets who were really like a big part of those gospels were about justice, and I guess that really stuck inside me somewhere, that was a way to align yourself, and I've been really privileged, and so I feel like that's how I can give back some of the good fortune that I've had. And I've grew up in immigrant communities. I've seen the decency and kindness of people of color at a time when I was poor and young and couldn't get any help from anybody. And these were the people who were taking care of me. And these are the people whose hearts were going out to me, just purely because I was a human being, not because of the color of my skin or how much money I had or what I didn't have. And so I'm just moved by this work, and I'm moved by the people who are forgotten about, and who are fighting, and who are on the downside of this system, the people who this system doesn't work for, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it's my calling or what, but that's where I feel like I need to be.
Well, I tell you, it's a beautiful thing to behold. Other people have platforms, people who may be watching this, who also want to be allies. What would you say to other people who have platforms, big or small, about the importance of sticking up for the Native American community going forward, and sticking up for voting rights for people who may be being suppressed right now?
So in this country, one of the ways that we've had this power structure that keeps people of color, POC people out, Black, Indigenous people of color out of decision making, has been to take away their ability to share that power. And so what we're seeing now, especially in the last election, was a Native vote. Actually, people came out and voted in record numbers. And you know what the outcome of that was? We had 2 representatives in Congress. We have Ruth Buffalo. We have a populace that's beginning to know who the American people are, what their struggles are. And there's nobody who can talk about that better than the Native people themselves. I mean, most Americans don't even know what that experience is. The Native experience is one of the dirty, best kept secrets of this nation, and the more that they exercise their power in this system, the more just this system will become. And that's why it's so important. And that's why they're working so hard to disenfranchise people of color, to keep them away, to make them think that their vote doesn't mean anything. They want to stay in power. And the only way you get them out of power is to take the power away. And you do that through voting.
Well, I can feel your passion for it. And, the next person we want to hear from is somebody who can really, I think, give us a sense of the importance. Jody and I served in the Obama administration together. And like I said, she had a different last name then. It's Jody Archambault now. But she's got the same heart and the same dedication and the same focus on justice. But you know what? A lot of people, I'm going to give you the hard question. A lot of people are throwing their hands up right now. They're saying it's so corrupt. It's been corrupt for so long. John Lewis died. You're looking at, videos 50 years ago, same problem. Why should we care? Why should we vote? And how do we activate the Indian vote in an election like this? Tough question for you, Jody.
Thank you, Van. And I really appreciate being asked to be here. I'm in Bismarck, North Dakota, the homelands of the Mandan and the Dakota people. Really excited to talk about getting out the vote. Now, Mark talked about it a little bit, about how the powers that be want to see us stay home. And I know that one thing that happened in North Dakota when the voter ID law came down in 2018, that I think people are complacent until somebody challenges their rights, until somebody tells them that they can't do what they have every right to do. And in 2018, the voters of North Dakota came out big in Indian country, bigger than they did in 2008 during the first Obama election. It was unprecedented participation, this fire that we have in us as Indigenous peoples to resist and to go towards the things that tell us that we're not supposed to be a part of the system. This is what we need to dig into. We've been resisting since contact. We've been here on these lands, protecting the waters, protecting our homelands, protecting the future generations, not just for ourselves, but for everybody when it comes to the natural resources. These are the reasons that we need to get involved. It's not about power for representation. We're not going to mistake representation for power. Power is the water. Power is the hurricanes. That's real power. And real power is land back. We're not going to ever achieve land back as Indigenous peoples if we don't get involved. We're not going to have the things that ail our communities with health and with climate and the protection of our sacred places. Those things are all going to vex us until we really practice our rights as citizens of this country. And this isn't going to be an easy fight. There's going to be a lot of barriers put in front of us. We have to do things. What Ruth was talking about making a plan, that's real. Like, everybody can make a plan. We are really good at organizing against things that want to hold us back. So people told us in the 20s and at the turn of the century that we couldn't have our ceremonies protected. We couldn't practice our Indigenous ways. We still did it, and we did it in the most formal and the most beautiful ways. We have to take that same energy and participate in this year's election like no other time, because what's at stake is our future, the future of this country, the future of our generations, the lands, the water, all of the different kinds of ways. Joe Biden has been supportive of so many issues. I've worked alongside him in the White House. He understands us. He talks to the right people. We can't let people take our vote away. We have to move like we've never moved before. We have to organize ourselves, our families. The stakes could not be higher for our people. With all that we've been throughout these centuries, as part of America, we have the resiliency, and we're tough, and we can do it. We can move and organize ourselves to choose a different path so that we don't have to put up with the things that we've been through. We have to remember the first thing that Trump did was to sign an executive order on KXL. He signed an executive order permitting Dakota Access Pipeline. He took away the designation of Bears Ears. There's so many reasons to be motivated to not put up with that kind of treatment and erasure. We're ready, and I think our young people are more than ready to get active.
Well, listen, I think that was as powerful can get. I'm gonna toss to Clara and give her the opportunity to do a call for action. But before I do that, I just want to say, just from my own heart, the values that were just spoken to throughout this whole thing are not just good for the Native American community. It's not just important for the Indigenous people here. These are globally necessary values for the survival of the human species. The wisdom in the communities that you represent and that you're trying to defend and advance, that wisdom is world wisdom. It's the wisdom that if it is given to the world and shared with the world, we will still be here in generations to come. And if it's not, we're done for. So you're unfortunately having to put the whole country on your back, the whole world on your back, and bring us back to something that makes some sense. And it is, in fact, true. I never lie to you. You cannot get everything you want just by voting, but you can lose everything you've got by not voting. I'll tell you that. And we've got to be able to help these young people understand that there's something at stake here in this election, and there's wisdom in this community that needs to shine brighter than ever before. And I'll give it to Clara to close this out.
Thank you, Van. Join our movement, and please vote like your life depends on it, because it does. Please text TRIBE to 30330. That's TRIBE to 30330. Indian country and our allies, we need you. You're the make it or break it in this election, and we sure need you to get up and get out and vote. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. We, have had an incredible time here with our Native American Caucus. I think all the panels that we had, all the speakers that we had, we have been incredibly blessed in terms of the commitment that the Biden campaign has shown to our community in terms of having all of these tremendous surrogates and all these tremendous people come talk to our community. It's exactly what Clara said. This is the most important election of our entire lifetime. We have to remember that. I was sitting here looking at a picture of my grandmother who was born in 1924 before she had the right to vote. And, it's a picture of me and my son's graduation when he graduated and was going on to go to school at Stanford. I'm wrapping her with a blanket with my love from my family. She's no longer here with me in terms of being in a position to stand with us, but I'm here to stand for her. I'm here to stand for my kids. I'm here to stand for my community. And I want you to take this bold step, and I want you to get out and I want you to vote. Our life depends on it. Our communities depend on it. Our children depend on it. Our world and our planet, Mother Earth, depends on it. So please, please get out and vote. 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 Thank you. God bless you. Miigwech. Thank you all for joining us. Love you, Indian country.
Medakwe Oyase.